Why is it that millions of people work hard for decades, save consistently, avoid reckless spending, yet still feel like they are falling behind when they look back, while another group seems to grow their money simply by starting earlier? This is not a comfortable question, because it forces us to confront a truth that few want to say out loud. The problem is not that you are lazy or unintelligent. The problem is that you are taught the wrong idea about investing from the very beginning. Most beginners grow up with a set of widely accepted beliefs. You need a lot of money to invest. You need deep market knowledge to invest. You need to wait for the perfect time to invest. These assumptions sound reasonable, but they are exactly why most people never start. And when they do not start, they pay a very real price, even though no one ever sends them a bill. There is something rarely stated clearly. Not investing is also an investment decision. It is the decision to leave your entire financial future standing still while the economy around you keeps moving. Inflation does not need your permission. It quietly erodes purchasing power every single year. Meanwhile, those who participate in long-term investing allow their money to grow alongside businesses, the economy, and time itself. The financial industry rarely explains this in simple terms, because complexity works in its favor. When investing is presented as a game only for experts, ordinary people either stay out entirely or step in with fear. And when you are afraid, you make mistakes, buy unsuitable products, and pay fees you never fully understand. This is what I call the beginner's tax, an invisible cost paid by millions simply because they started without a proper framework. It is important to clarify from the start that this is not a conspiracy theory. This reality has been studied, measured, and repeated across generations of investors. Major financial institutions and regulators openly acknowledge that long-term outcomes are driven not by market prediction, but by time in the market and asset allocation from the beginning. Yet these simple truths rarely make compelling headlines. This opening is not meant to push you into investing at all costs. It is meant to pull back the curtain on a foundational truth. Beginners do not lose because they start later than others. They lose because they are taught to fear the game before they ever understand the rules. And when that fear lasts long enough, they lose the most valuable asset in investing: time. In the next section, we will go deeper into the mechanism that makes beginners constantly feel behind, who benefits from that feeling, and why the current system makes not investing appear safer than investing, even though the reality is exactly the opposite. Why beginners always feel like they are wrong from the start. My name is Dolan, and I have spent far too much time digging into how the financial system operates beneath advice that sounds harmless to ordinary people. If you are tired of watching wealthy individuals grow richer simply by letting time work for them while you struggle each month just to stay in the same place, remember to subscribe and hit like if what you hear here helps you see how the game is really set up. To understand why beginners always feel behind, we need to start with a fundamental truth. The financial system was not designed to teach you investing in a simple way. It was designed to sell you a sense of safety, and the easiest way to sell safety is to plant fear of making mistakes. When you are afraid, you delay. When you delay, your money stays idle. And when money stays idle, the system does not need to do anything else, because time and inflation take care of the rest. The first hidden mechanism is making investing feel beyond the reach of ordinary people. Complex terminology, confusing charts, success stories told only after the outcome is known. Beginners look at this and conclude they are not qualified. This is not accidental. When investing looks too difficult, you either hand control to someone else or you do nothing at all. Both paths lead to paying the beginner's tax in different ways. The second mechanism is redefining risk. Beginners are taught that risk means losing money when markets fall. They are rarely taught that not investing for years is an even greater risk. This type of risk does not shock you, does not make headlines, and does not cause panic in a single day. It erodes quietly, and because it happens slowly, it is underestimated. This is why many people reach middle age only to realize they were too cautious during the years when controlled risk would have benefited them most. Next comes the crowd's mistake. When beginners finally decide to learn about investing, they follow the most common path. They look for short-term advice. They ask what to buy right now. They chase trending stories. But long-term investing does not reward short-term cleverness. It rewards consistency. When you enter the market only when things look safe, You usually arrive after most of the gains are already priced in. Another important rule that beginners are rarely told lies in legal and product structures. Many financial tools are optimized for people with large capital and long time horizons. Beginners with limited funds and fragile confidence are often guided toward options that do not fit their situation, not because they are openly deceived, but because they were never taught how to ask the right questions. When you do not know what to ask, you accept whatever answer is available. What is notable is that the system does not need you to fail completely. It only needs you to start late or to start in a way that makes quitting easy. Just a few years outside the market is enough to create a psychological gap that feels impossible to close. At that point, people convince themselves that investing is not for them, that they are too late, that they missed their chance. The core of this hidden mechanism is personalized failure. Beginners believe that if they do not succeed, it is their fault. They do not see the millions of others experiencing the same emotions, making the same decisions, reaching the same outcomes. When failure is individualized, the system escapes scrutiny, and the cycle continues. What you need to remember at the end of this section is that feeling behind is not a sign you are unfit for investing. It is the result of a structure designed to make starting feel more frightening than it needs to be. Once you understand this, you regain control. You stop searching for shortcuts to beat the market and start looking for a structure that allows you to stay in it long enough. In the next section, we will enter the point where conflict becomes unavoidable. The specific mistakes beginners almost always make if they do not realize how they are being guided, and why these mistakes repeat generation after generation. The magic that keeps beginners paying the price. At this point, the picture shifts from emotion to mechanism. This is no longer about fear alone, but about a strategy that quietly pushes millions of beginners into the market in the most disadvantageous way possible. The turning point is a truth rarely stated plainly. Long-term winners are not better traders. They are people who structure cash flow and behavior so that time works for them. The first piece of this strategy is reversing the question. Beginners ask what to buy for high returns. Experienced investors ask how long they need to stay invested and how much risk they can sustain. When the question changes, every decision that follows changes. Instead of searching for a perfect asset, they build a system that does not depend on perfection. The second piece is brutally simple math. Compound growth does not require prediction. It requires time and consistency. Someone who starts early with small amounts and invests regularly often ends with far more than someone who starts later with larger sums. This feels counterintuitive to beginners who measure effort by short-term intensity rather than long-term trajectory. But markets respond to longevity, not bursts of effort. This strategy also exploits an unfair advantage beginners overlook. Those with a proper investment structure do not make constant decisions. Automated cash flow removes emotional struggle. Beginners acting on emotion enter only when things feel safe. The problem is that safety is usually priced in. Potential returns are lower, but psychological risk is higher because expectations are unrealistic. Another dangerous loop is the information loop. The more content beginners consume, the more strategies they see. Instead of clarity, they experience paralysis. They jump from one approach to another, restarting each time. Meanwhile, experienced investors are boring. They repeat the same process year after year, allowing compounding to do its work without creativity. This strategy also relies on an uncomfortable reality. Most long-term gains come from a small number of critical periods. Beginners, afraid of volatility, are often absent during these moments. They sell during panic and wait to re-enter when things feel safe. Missing just a few strong periods dramatically changes long-term outcomes, not due to lack of intelligence, but due to lack of a structure that forces them to stay. The key distinction here is between strategy and tactics. Beginners obsess over tactics, individual moves. Long-term winners focus on strategy, the overall structure. When strategy is right, tactics do not need to be perfect. When strategy is wrong, no tactical brilliance can save the result. This section closes with a crucial realization. The game is not unfair in a mysterious way. It is unfair because those who understand structure let time work for them, while those who do not allow time to work against them. The difference is not prediction ability, but who was taught how to start correctly. In the next section, we bring this mechanism into real life through a concrete story. One ordinary person, starting with no advantage over you, whose outcome diverges entirely because of structure. One ordinary person and two very different paths. To see how this strategy works in real life, set theory aside and follow the story of an ordinary person. Call him Michael, not a millionaire, no financial background, no special industry connections. Michael started working in his early 20s with an average income, able to save a small amount each month with discipline. Early on, Michael was like most people. He kept his savings in cash because it felt safe. Investing looked risky, complicated, and reserved for wealthier people. But there was one difference. Michael was not searching for quick wealth. He wanted to avoid falling behind. When he realized his savings were slowly losing value as living costs rose, he decided to learn long-term investing. Years 1 through 5 are when most beginners quit. Michael started small. He clearly defined this money as long-term, not for use in the near future. He accepted volatility. Every month, he invested a fixed amount regardless of headlines. Some years markets rose and his account looked fine. Other years markets fell and red numbers appeared. But because his monthly investment was modest, mistakes were never large enough to trigger panic. At the same time, a friend named Daniel chose the common path. Daniel was interested in investing but wanted certainty. He read extensively, watched endlessly, and waited for better timing. When markets rose, he felt he missed out. When markets fell, he felt justified staying out. Year after year, his money remained on the sidelines. By year 10, the difference was psychological before it was numerical. Michael was accustomed to market swings. News no longer shook him. Investing became routine, like a monthly expense. Daniel, meanwhile, felt growing pressure. Time had passed, money had accumulated, and every decision felt heavier. When a major economic crisis hit, the contrast became clear. Markets fell sharply and fear spread everywhere. Michael did not enjoy seeing his account decline. But because this was long-term money, he did not sell. In fact, his continued contributions allowed him to buy more at lower prices. Daniel became even more cautious, waiting for stability that no one could clearly define. After 20 years, results arrived quietly. There was no dramatic moment of overnight wealth. Michael's portfolio grew steadily, with most gains coming in later years when compounding truly accelerated. Daniel eventually began investing, but always felt he was chasing time. Every fluctuation caused more stress than necessary. The point of this story is not exact numbers, it is the difference in experience. Michael was not smarter or luckier. He started earlier with a structure that allowed him to stay. Daniel did not fail because he chose the wrong asset. He failed because he lacked a simple system that allowed him to begin with limited money and confidence. This section shows one thing clearly. Long-term investing does not reward waiting for perfection. It rewards starting imperfectly and continuing with discipline. The greatest gap is not knowledge, but repeated action over time. In the next section, we zoom out. When millions are pushed into waiting and fear, what happens to society, and who benefits from that structure? The bigger picture and the quiet inequality. At the personal level, the difference between Michael and Daniel is clear. At the societal level, the consequences are far more serious. This is not about individual choices alone. It is the outcome of a structure that keeps millions outside growth, while a smaller group moves further ahead using time, capital, and systems. Industrially, finance does not simply react to beginner behavior. It shapes it. Products, marketing, and advice revolve around fear and greed. During volatility, caution is emphasized. During rallies, opportunity and fear of missing out dominate. In both cases, ordinary people remain reactive, following rhythms set by others. The social impact is more than widening wealth gaps. It creates opportunity gaps. Those who invested early gain access to better housing, education, and flexibility. Those who stayed out face rising costs despite hard work. The injustice is not that some grow wealthy, but that many never receive a fair chance to understand and enter the game correctly. Why regulators do not intervene more aggressively is a common question. The answer is complex. The system operates within legal boundaries. No law prohibits complexity. No rule forces simplicity for beginners. As long as disclosures exist, responsibility shifts to individuals. When responsibility is individualized, systemic problems fade from view. This creates a paradox. Those who need simplicity most have the least access to it. Those with capital, advisors, and education benefit most from long-term structures. Beginners with limited income and time navigate a maze where a small mistake can erase confidence entirely. The long-term result is a society where many feel they did everything right yet failed to advance. This erodes trust in systems, futures, and personal agency. When investing is viewed as someone else's game, ordinary people accept a passive role in an economy they help sustain daily. This section is not meant to provoke empty anger. It clarifies a crucial truth. The current picture is not the result of widespread personal failure. It is the result of a structure that favors complexity, delay, and fear because those elements preserve the status quo. Once understood, investing stops being a personal test and becomes a survival skill that must be learned early and correctly. In the final section, we close with the core truth beginners must carry forward, not to fight the system, but to stop being frozen by it, and more importantly, to know how to act from this point onward. Truth and action. At the end of this journey, one truth must be stated plainly. The game was never designed to make investing feel easy for ordinary people. It was designed to make you hesitate, fear mistakes, and wait long enough for time to do its quiet damage. Not through collapse, but through slow erosion of purchasing power and missed opportunity. This does not mean you are powerless, but it does mean that if you treat investing as a test of intelligence or a gamble that must be won quickly, you are playing by rules that work against you. Most long-term winners did not succeed because they were smarter. They succeeded because they started earlier, accepted imperfection, and maintained a structure simple enough to keep them in the game. If there is one critical shift in mindset to carry forward, it is this. Investing is not about finding certainty. It is about managing uncertainty in a way that benefits you over time. When you understand this, fear does not disappear, but it no longer controls your decisions. Action does not mean making large moves. It means stopping the wait for a perfect version of yourself. Starting small, with clear goals, with a structure you can maintain for decades, not to beat the market, but to stop standing outside it. If this content helped you see how the game truly works, share it with someone stuck in the same hesitation. And if you want to keep exploring the financial mechanisms that shape everyday life, stay here. There is much more that remains unsaid.